Okay, great. So welcome. Nice to have you here. Also, for those of you at home and also those of you who are watching maybe in the future, my name is Mina, and this is the first class within a 7-week series, hopefully, where we will explore the idea of body image. So not so much our body image per se, but our relationship to body image itself. And we'll apply different ideas from yoga, Buddhist philosophy, so we can start to soften our grip on body image. And I'll just start by talking a little bit about myself. So I am mixed. So I'm Japanese German, and that often is a good starting ground to feel alienated, like I don't belong, there's something wrong with me. And I had a full-on eating disorder, around anorexic at around 18, 19. And since then till the end of my 20s, it was a big roller coaster. So, and over the last 10 years, things have stabilized. Also, I'm teaching yoga and I'm able to implement the teachings of yoga, I think, also onto myself. And so I would like to share, I don't have the answers to everything, but I would like to share the things that have helped me, the way of thinking about your body that hopefully just make you a happier person. And I know that we have different backgrounds, different things that, let's say, bother us about us. And this is not a course in which we talk about what is healthy, what one should look like, what is desirable, what is not desirable. That doesn't matter. Also, we don't discuss if it's good to change your body, different procedures, what is ethical, not ethical, whatever. That doesn't matter at all. We're just looking at how does this desire to want to change our relationship to our body come into place in the first place. And as one more background before we dive into today's topic is I studied fashion design when I was, however old you are when you study something, between 20 and 25, I studied fashion design. And let me just check real quick. It's actually recording. Yes, it is. Sorry about that. And I started studying fashion right after my mother had passed away. And that's also the reason I got into eating disorders, things like that. And in fashion design, it's all about the visual, right? It is an extremely visual world that we live in, but I think fashion is maybe the epitome of visual culture. And there's a lot that you work also on role models. What is the ideal female or what is the ideal male? And so you work a lot with the visual idea of what maybe your female role model is. And so I basically went through 5 years of art therapy through studying fashion. And what I realized or what I noticed the most, it's that this our relationship to the visual, this sense, is really hyper focused on in our society. And so today's idea is maybe the word is body image and it is visual maybe, but however, if we can start to add or the depth of the other senses that we have in our bodies to get the concept of ourselves, we can get a more 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional idea of ourselves so that the visual doesn't have that much of an impact on us. So, and to begin with, I'd like to talk a little bit about the specificities that each sense has. So the visual sense, it travels very well, right? Up until we could take pictures, we could only draw cave paintings, and then they would stay there and you would have to go there to look at those paintings. But once we started taking pictures, we had pictures all of a sudden that could travel. So And now we have the internet. Now pictures turn into pixels and they can go everywhere in the world. So of course, information society favors the sense of seeing because we can communicate it very, very well and easily across space and time. Also, the sense of seeing puts distance between you and the observed right away. So there is a distance. You have to have distance. I can't see my hand right now. I need to have distance to see my hand. Also, the sense of sight is analytic. So as soon as we have something outside of us and we create space, our left brain starts to analyze things. So instead of saying, being overwhelmed by general image, that can also be, we can also start to say, oh, this is red, this is yellow, this is small, this is big, this is in opposition to so and so. And so the left brain starts to kick in much more when we use our eyes. The sound or our audio sense is also travels well. We have podcasts, we have radio, radio, I guess, I don't know, frankly, if radio or photography came first, maybe. Some of you who know more history than me can answer that. But it travels well. But I don't think people get hung up on their voice as much as they do get hung up on how they look like. So I know I've had friends who are very insecure or self-conscious about their voice, but voice is something you can modulate quite well. So if I just talk like this for the whole course, you would think that this is my voice. And if I talked like this for the whole course, you would also think that this is my voice. So it's something that we can change, and people will actually take you at face value. It's less hideable. It's more hideable that your authentic voice than maybe your physical body. The sense of smell and taste are super intimate. Obviously, we need to lick something, put it in our mouth to be able to taste it. And also the sense of smell used to be much more important back when we were hunter-gatherers in terms of hunting, changes in weather, finding animals and things like that. So it's a part of our brain that has deteriorated quite a bit in terms of being able to recognize different smells, different tastes. There are or can be areas in our lives when we can get self-conscious of our smell and our taste, but those are very intimate relationships, and it's not something that you normally communicate out into the world. So, and the last sense is the sense of touch. And the sense of touch kind of moves also into interoception. So we can touch something, which is very immediate. You need to obviously get close to it, similar to when we smell something or when we taste something. But it also goes over into our inner world. So sometimes I have situations where I don't know if I'm hot. I don't know if my sweater is itchy. I don't know if I'm hangry or anxious about something. And so the sense of touch can lead over into our inner world. And in my experience, in giving a more plastic idea of our body image, strengthening our sense to our inner feeling world, interoception, proprioception, visceroception, which is our sense of what our organs are doing, is extremely important in, kind of dampening down the overpowering power that the visual sense has. Our eyes are also the most developed in terms of the senses within our brain. And the reason human beings have survived or have become, top of the food chain is because we started walking upright, and that gave us a much more clearer view of the world. So the sense of seeing is important, and it makes us who we are today. But when it comes to body image issues, it's not so helpful to focus on the eyes. So what we'll do today simply is find a practice where we can really ground ourselves just in the physical body. And it might sound very, very simple, but I think it's very powerful in softening the overpowering pull that the eyes can have. And just to be like, hey, that's not all there is to the world. There are different senses as well. All right, so I talked a lot. I hope it made sense. Before we get started, you can extend your legs for a moment, shake them out. And let me just check the time. Okay, all right. So today, like I said, our practice is going to be super, super simple. And over the next, oh yeah, let me just talk a little bit over the next few weeks. So every week I'll introduce a different concept that's helped me in terms of opening up or the softening the overdependency on the visual. And we'll work on one hand along the chakra system. So we'll start from the ground up. So today it's all about rooting and grounding ourselves in the body. And also I'm taking some cues from what's called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is often called ACT. And this is a style of therapy which is strongly based in a cognitive behavioral therapy, but also in the world of mindfulness. So we'll work along these steps as well. Yeah, good. So we're going to get started seated. So if you still want to lean against your wall, that's perfectly fine. If you want to sit up on a cushion, bolster, and switch up how you sit. Good. And you can roll your shoulders back. And this is not a class in which you have to perform in any way. So if you want to switch things up, if something doesn't work, you can change it up. Okay. Nice. And then just for a moment, you can either close your eyes or soften your gaze. And just feeling your sits bones. Maybe your breath. If it's possible to breathe through the nose, you can breathe through the nose. And just arriving here, taking stock of maybe what's happening in your mind, in your body, emotions. And, we'll change positions from time to time. So you can open your eyes then, but maybe playing around with keeping your eyes closed today as much as possible. Of course, if you're uncomfortable, you can soften your eyes. But when we close our eyes, the other senses start to open up and they become a little bit louder, a little bit more pronounced. So that we can give the inner world a little bit more voice, a little bit more presence, nuance. And so quite often when we start practicing more somatic things, yoga, these practices where there's much more interoception, looking inward, the world inside can be a little bit muddy at first. The world of the eyes and the visuals is very sharp, it's clear, very analytical, but when we close our eyes, things are a little bit more fuzzy. But if we give the world inside a little bit more of a chance to open up and our senses to sharpen, then we can also have quite a nuanced and sharp conversation within the sensations within us. And so we'll start by bringing the hands together, the tips of the fingers together. Not to come into Anjali Mudra, but to feel that the right hand is touching the left hand. And the left hand again is touching the right hand. And just feeling into the pressure, you can press a little bit more, just a little bit less. Maybe you feel some cold, some warmth. And the mind likes to label things and judge things. And maybe this is the fingers, these are the bones, this is the flesh and the fat and the muscle and the tendons. But maybe for today, staying a little bit more general or descriptive. Maybe things are squishy or fluffy, cold or bouncy. Almost like an innocent baby is describing your body, as opposed to something that's a little bit more analytic, so that we can meet our body as a tapestry of textures, tapestry of densities, tapestry of temperatures, a little bit more direct way of understanding our bodies, as opposed to the analytical brain that tends to create some space or distance between the body and the mind. So if you haven't already, you can start to move your fingers around so that you can maybe feel some texture around the fingertips. Maybe there's a smoothness or more of a roughness, tingliness. And you can continue to explore the palms of the hands, left and right hand. You can use all 5 fingers. You can just use 1 finger. Making sure you're still breathing. There might be some tiny hills, tiny valleys. And if you catch yourself making some sort of judgment, that's fine. That's what the brain does. It's okay. You're just coming back to the immediate experience of what the surface feels like. And then you can also continue to feel into your nails, tips of the fingers. There's a stark contrast between the surface of the nail as opposed to the skin around. Also going into the joints of the fingers. Maybe there's some tiny little hairs, some fluffiness. Just being super curious about what the hands feel like. Maybe there's a difference between the top of the hand, the palm of the hand. And continue to go into the wrists. Going around the wrists. Maybe there's a pulse, temperature change. And then you can continue to walk up. And maybe there's a different sense. You can also squish the arm into the elbows. Maybe there's, even when you're wearing clothes, maybe there's a texture sense around the elbows, into the arms, the shoulders. Armpits again feel very different. And from there, maybe moving towards the collarbones. Maybe there's a different texture there than around in the rest of the body. And maybe starting to explore the neck. Yeah, again, maybe the texture of the skin here is different. Into the jaw. Maybe exploring your face through the fingers. Maybe a different sensuality that you might be exploring Maybe there's some harder bits, maybe softer bits. Into the ears, complex structure of the ears. And maybe into your hair, the skull. And from there, through the back of the neck, start to move down the torso. And at any point, if there's parts of the body that you do not want to touch, you don't have to. Maybe there's some erogenous zones. Maybe the texture changes as you move around the lower back. Again, take your time. Maybe some areas are more interesting, more complex than the other areas that are a little bit more plain or simple. Maybe some areas have more feedback. Some might feel more sturdy. Some are sensitive. You can also extend your legs and then go into the legs. Your bum. Whenever maybe you start to move into parts of the body that are problem areas, quote unquote, parts that you're not so friendly with, coming back to this idea of just exploring the texture, density. Maybe moving into the knees. You can take your time. It's becoming super curious, like you're exploring the surface of the moon. If you could touch the moon, like a little ball. All the way, eventually arriving in your ankles, complexity of the feet, the toes again, and the soles of the feet. Obviously, it's going to feel different if you do this practice naked. Okay. Nice. And then we'll sooner or later just take a moment to integrate everything. You can just stroke your arms down. Woo. Down the chest, down the back. Just with the idea of integrating everything or releasing anything you don't need. And then just however you want to sit, just coming into stillness for just one more moment. And just checking in if anything is shifted, not shifted, if the mind is louder, less loud. And then today we'll simply continue with exploring super simple positions. And we're going to start on all fours. So coming into the tabletop position. And we'll stay there for a while. So maybe you like to have a blanket underneath the knees, just so your knees are nice and comfy. And again, once you've shifted the position and you feel like you can close your eyes for a moment, you can close your eyes. Of course, tabletop position, if we hold it for a long time, can get tiring. So we won't stay here forever. But just for a moment, maybe shifting the weight, you can even do that with the eyes closed from one hand to another. Just feeling into the texture of now the mat. Now your hands are not feeling your body, but the mat. And the hands are giving you feedback as to how much weight is in what finger. And you can also draw circles with the hips, and that will also shift the weight between the hands, the knees, the shoulders. Doesn't have to be big movements. Making sure the breath is still moving. And just noticing how the weight pours into the shoulders as soon as you shift the weight forward and back out. Maybe there's temperature changes that go along with that. Good. And we'll just take a moment to gently move the spine. You can inhale to softly drop the belly as you lift the heart. And as you exhale, you can round the back. Then again, you can close your eyes, and maybe as you do this, the clothing moves around your back. And then you notice that. You might notice that one hand or one arm is slightly stronger than the other. Good. Wonderful. And then maybe just coming into stillness for just a moment and noticing that, you know, this is quite an animalistic position. We're on our hands and feet, and we're just carrying the weight on all fours, bearing our weight, and just holding our body. Good. Let's come into a child's pose. So you can widen the knees and sit back. If you want to keep your knees together, if child's pose is not the right thing, you can either place the bolster under and sit back onto the bolster so that there's less weight on the knees. You can also keep your hips up and allow the forehead to come downward. So there are different possibilities. Yeah, good. And you can place your forehead onto the floor if you like, so that you don't have to hold your head. And if any of these positions are uncomfortable, you can just lie flat on your belly. That's another way of being in a similar position. So you have different options. And once you're either in child's pose or lying flat on your belly, you can take your glasses off for a moment if you want to, so you can either look to the side or let the head come towards the floor. Yes, good, nice. So you don't have to hold the weight of your head. Good, nice. And this tends to be more of a cocoon-like position where the whole body is turning inward a little bit more. You can feel your breath in the back of your body. So again, we'll just stay in this position for a while. So there's nothing to do and there's nothing to see. And if at any point you're uncomfortable in any of these positions, you can always change them to sit in any way that feels more comfortable for you. And as the breath moves into your back and you're breathing here, you can feel quite vulnerable or quite dainty the way the back moves up with an inhale, back down with your exhale. Just more and more fusing with your breath. And the movement of the breath. Head is nice and relaxed. If you like, you can just count the breath. So as you inhale, maybe 4. And exhale, maybe 4. If 4 and 4 is too long, you can also go 3 and 3. And just fusing more and more with the soft breath and the gentle movement in your back. Good, and we'll come back to this later, to the breath. But for now, we're going to slowly come out of child's pose. And if you're not there already, we're going to lie flat on our bellies. And just take a moment to arrive here. Can kick the legs back a little bit. Releasing the forehead. Just arriving on the floor, feeling the backs of the feet, the hips, chest on the floor. Good. And we'll move into a super gentle Sphinx pose. So when you're ready, you can bring your elbows underneath the shoulders. And if this feels like too big of a back bend, you can always bring your elbows further forward. Another way to find more comfort in this posture is to say I'm going to place the blanket just on my pubic bone and my hips. And that way we can also soften this posture a little bit. Okay. The feet are nice and relaxed. Shoulder blades moving down. And this posture compared to child's pose is a little bit more open. It requires a little bit more strength in the arms. And just so feeling into the arms that need to carry you a little bit. It's not a lot of weight, but there's some strength and some pushing into the floor. And so feeling that strength in the arms, some of that opening through the chest. And if your head feels heavy, you can always place the onto a block at any height. So your shoulders can soften a little bit more. And so all these different postures have a slight psychological effect on us. So it's not just when we do yoga or we practice these different positions that they make us more bendy or they make us more strong, but it's that they also allow us to move into different modes or moods, different stances, touching upon more vulnerable postures, more strengthful postures, the different states within our bodies that we can call up and recall when we feel a certain way. And so instead of changing our thoughts or our addiction to a certain way of thinking, we can also just change the position of the body. And that will have a strong effect on our mood, on how we think. So we can go ground up as opposed to top down. And Let's take 3 more breaths here. And then you can slowly open your eyes and take your time and just lying flat back onto the floor. We were in a soft back bend, so your back might need just a moment to release. You can also bend your knees and let the feet flop side to side, just super gently. Okay. And then from there, we'll slowly come up to standing. So we're going to take our time. Can you press the hands into the floor? Come back onto hands and knees. And however you like to get up from there, you can get up. You can move through a downward facing dog and stand up, or you can bring one leg forward. The wall is there in case you need it. Then come up to standing. Okay. All right. And we've been on the floor like our ancestors, closer where we can smell things, where we can lick things more easily. And when we stand, the world looks a little bit different around us. And that will have a different effect on our bodies again. And we'll just take a moment to stand with our feet hip width or a little bit wider. You can keep your socks on, you can take them off. Right. And we'll do some shaking. Shaking is a somatic practice where we bend and extend the legs quite rapidly. And again, there's nothing you can do right or wrong. So at some point you can close your eyes again. And just noticing the body shaking. If it's tiring or feels like too much, you can make the shaking a little slower, a little smaller. If it feels good, you can make it a little bit bigger and bouncier. Right. And sometimes when our body bounces or moves, it feels a certain way. There might be parts of the body clapping together. There might be parts of the body that are dangling or swinging. And just noticing if there's judgment towards that. And again, getting back to an innocent curiosity towards these sensations in the body. If it feels nice and you want to make it bigger, if you can. If you want to keep it nice and small, I can do that too. Some people like to, when they shake, bring the arms up towards the ceiling, allowing the shaking or the dangling also to move into the arms. Body wants to release through a sigh, you can let that do it. Another way to shake is to say, I'm going to shift the weight over to one side. I can also imagine just water dripping out through the fingertips and the crown of the head. Shifting the weight over towards the other side. And people also like to let the body hang forward. All these are different ideas on how you can shake. You don't have to. Sometimes the body wants to make a little bit of noise. Sometimes it's fun to speed it up, make them a little bit smaller, jitterier. Sometimes it's nice to have nice and loose and bouncy shakes. Good. And then super, super slowly, you can make the shaking smaller. Sometimes the shaking has a life of its own and it can't really control when it stops. So Give it the time to slowly find its own ending. Observing the shakes getting smaller and smaller until at some point there's softness and stillness. Maybe the body shifts its weight forwards and backwards. Maybe there's a different sensation in the arms, in the belly, chest, sense of openness. Blood flow has changed. Maybe the breathing has changed. Maybe there's different openness in the body, in the front, in the back. Okay. And then keeping that curiosity, we're going to come to squatting. So you can either squat without any props, that's fine as well. Or you can take a bolster or a cushion. You can also just sit on a chair. That's another possibility. There's a chair as well if you need one. And squat. If you need one more, I can give you one more. Asana Hand? I try. You try, okay. Another possibility also is to get closer to a wall. If you feel like sitting without the support of a wall feels uncomfortable, you can bring the bolster all the way to the wall and sit there. Okay. Nice. Oof. Without falling off. Good, nice. Wonderful. And then the feet can be just a little bit wider. It doesn't have to be very wide. Good. And can find a position for the arms that feels comfortable. Maybe the arms are in between. Maybe they're on the knees. Maybe they're hands in front of the heart. So there's different ways to squat. And this is a position that our ancestors have spent a lot of time in, most of their lives. Not most of their lives, but a huge chunk. When you're eating, when you're gathering, when you're cooking, when you're just talking, when you're going to the bathroom. So it's a very primal position to be in. Feet are grounded. And the spine is relatively tall. And the legs are open, which can make some of us feel more vulnerable or not. You can sense into that. There's a connectedness or closeness to the ground. We're still upright. And to me, this posture feels very much like matter of fact. It's like, it is what it is. Very bam. Very grounded, rooted. Take it or leave it. And so especially after the shaking, being here, still with your eyes closed if possible. Again, if it's uncomfortable, you can lean against the wall, sit up higher. It's not about flexibility or anything. It's just about moving into this shape that can change the state that you're in from within. And it has nothing to do with what we see, how we look like, what we can or cannot do. It's just the innate ability of our body to shift moods and states by being in different archetypal positions. Good. And then From here, we'll slowly come on to lying on our backs. However, at home, if you don't have a strap, you can also, my shirt like this will totally work. For those of you in the studio, you already have a strap that's already been belted. And we'll stay on our backs for a while, so make sure you're warm enough. And we'll come onto our backs. You can step through the strap so that you have it around your thighs. I'm going to move these things out of the way. And we're going to lie in constructive first. So I would turn around so you can still see me. Exactly. So you don't get too confused later. If you want a little blanket underneath the head, then you can do that as well. And constructive rest means that we're on our backs, our knees are bent. And the strap is only there so we can be in this position without feeling like the legs are splaying out or the knees are dropping in. Feet are hip width distance apart, as well as the thighs. Okay. And we'll stay here for quite a while. And I'm going to come around and see. Okay. Yeah, if it feels comfortable. So the tightness of the strap, it depends on your body and your hips. It should be a point where you feel like you don't have to hold your legs. They don't have to do anything. You don't collapse inward. They don't fall out. The strap is catching you. And then again, you can close your eyes, lean back, and surprisingly, there's nothing to do for you. You can bring your hands anywhere where you like, alongside the body, on your hips, on your belly, wherever you feel like you want to tune in. And this is a position, constructive rest, in which our psoas muscle, so that's the deep, deep core stabilizing muscle, that's running deep at the back of our bodies. It moves out from underneath our ribs at the spine and moves into our inner thighs. And this is a muscle that is chronically tight in us human beings. So when we were on all fours and our sense of sight wasn't so important, we were mostly relying on hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting. This muscle was super soft. In four-legged animals like the cow, this meat, if you're non-vegetarian, is the filet mignon. So it's super soft and tender because they're on all fours. But once we started getting upright, this muscle started to be under constant tension. So this is a position in which we can soften and release the muscle. And it will take time. So sometimes 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you're at home and you want to do this for 15 minutes, you can do that as well. Key is to slowly and slowly really, really let go through the legs. So our thighs think, oh, you need to hold the legs. You don't have to. If you feel that you still can't let go, you might have to wiggle your feet around a little bit so that there's a sense that, oh, there's really nothing to do. Yeah, it might take a few tries to feel like, oof. And then you can support the letting go of the legs and the psoas by breathing into the belly. So every time you breathe in, the belly softens. And every time you exhale, the belly becomes soft, moves down. There's a natural cycle, waving, belly goes up, and belly goes back down. And as the breath moves and the diaphragm moves up and down, the psoas muscle also starts to be massaged through the attachments of the diaphragm, as well as the organs that move. And then starts to release bit by bit. And gets hydrated. And sometimes our body doesn't believe that it can let go. And so you can help out with the mind a little bit, saying, it's okay. And in the class I was teaching just before, I was saying that the thoughts that we have that are repetitive, habitual, tend to get us into a bunch of trouble, stem from tension. That's one way of looking at it. So if the body didn't have tension, it could just move freely, then our thoughts can also move freely. And the tension or the grip that we have in a sense of an ideal body that we want to move towards, our ideal number on a scale, ideal number of clothing, ideal way in which we want to be perceived by others, start to soften. And we can also see if the pelvic floor is tense in correlation to the diaphragm, the psoas. Pelvic floor is the hammock-like structure of muscle or layers of muscles at the base of the torso. And it keeps our organs in our body. And for most of us, these layers of muscles are both tense as well as weak. So first step in hydrating these muscles is allowing them to move. So as we inhale, the diaphragm moves down, organs move down, pelvic floor moves down. And as we exhale, the diaphragm moves up, and therefore the organs move up and the pelvic floor naturally rises. Some people like to imagine a hammock that's moving down with an inhale and back up with the exhale. People imagine a jellyfish. And so allowing all these wave-like motions in the structure of the body to move freely. Lessening the tension. Deepening the connection to our sense of self through within. I am because my breath is moving. I am because my pelvic floor is moving with the breath. I am because I feel my muscles around the inner thigh softening. I am because I simply feel my body here supported by gravity on the floor. Right. And then we can slowly, slowly come out of the strap. You can simply step out. And we're simply going to move into Shavasana from here. So if you want to place the bolster I gave you underneath the knees, you can do that. I'll also come around and cover some of you that are in the studio. If you're at home, you can make yourself nice and warm. If you don't need the bolster, you can just lie flat. And macht das Sinn mit dem Kissen für dich? Ja, ist gut. Super. Kannst die Füße auch ein bisschen breiter nehmen, wenn du möchtest. Genau. Ist okay, wenn ich dich zudecke? Okay. Once you've started to arrive, maybe you'd like to take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Welcoming your body on the mat. Now fully in a prone position. Now in yoga, this is called the corpse pose. And position where the body is fully in neutral. Nothing's lifted up above the other. No hierarchy between head, heart, hips, legs. It's a true democracy. And today we'll simply move through a body scan just to get in touch with every single part of our body. At any point you feel something's not feeling right, you need to shift your body, of course you can, mindfully. But if you're the tendency just to move out of habit, see if you can maybe observe that, let that pass. If it still persists, of course, by all means, change your position mindfully. We're going to start by bringing the whole back body onto the floor a little bit more. Softening through the face, chest, the hips. And we're going to start by bringing the awareness into the right hand. So when we move awareness through the body scan of the body, just bring the awareness there. Maybe there's nothing to feel. Maybe there's tingling, some temperature. If there's nothing, that's also perfectly fine. Just start in the right hand thumb, the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. Palm of the hand, back of the hand, the right wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, into the right armpit, the right side of the body, right hip, the right groin, right thigh, front and back, right knee, front and back, right shin and calf, to the right hand ankle, the heel, sole of the foot, top of the foot, the right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, and fifth toe. Feeling the whole right side body. From there, moving into the left hand thumb, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. Feeling the left palm of the hand, back of the hand, left wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, left armpit, side of the body, left hip, left groin, left thigh, the top and the bottom, knee, top and bottom, left shin and calf, ankle, heel, sole of the foot, top of the foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe, being the whole left side. Moving on to the forehead. Your forehead to the eyebrows, right eyebrow, left eyebrow, right eyeball, left eyeball, right cheek, left cheek, bridge of the nose, right nostril, left nostril, top lip, bottom lip, your tongue, the back of the throat, your chin, your neck. From there, right collarbone, left collarbone, into your right chest, left chest, right shoulder, left shoulder, moving down to your upper belly, belly button, lower belly, through to the backhand side, your right hip, your right buttocks, left buttocks, lower back, middle back, upper back, back into your shoulder blades, into the back of the neck, and the back of the head. Feeling your entire midsection. Feeling the whole front of the body, the whole front of the body. Feeling the back of the body, whole back of the body. And then feeling your entire body, your whole body. Just resting here, welcoming yourself. Feeling a sense of dignity, security, and value. For being here. And then for today, you can take a mental note of the state that you're in. Maybe it's something that you know you can come back to whenever you need to. As you start to slowly, slowly move your fingertips, your toes. Start to deepen the breath. You can eventually roll over onto one side. We'll take another moment there. And then slowly coming back to a comfortable seat, however you like to sit right here. Or maybe there's a position for your hands that you would like to finish your practice with. Maybe the hands on the thighs, maybe in front of the heart, maybe one hand onto belly and heart. Something that makes you feel like you've arrived. And I'm going to bow my chin in towards the heart center. And thank you for practicing today. Thank you. Thank you at home as well. I'm going to close the recording for now. And then we can